tumult about neo-Hasidus. They call neo-Hasidus.
Oh, right.
Perspective of a chassid, of a Babish chassid. What do you think about that? Is it...
I'm an old-timer, a traditionalist, although I know about what you're talking about. You're either a chassid or you're not a chassid. What do I mean? Every person has bchira, free will, to choose how much he wants to incorporate into his life of whatever he's doing. But you can't change the philosophy, the ethos. That's what I'm saying. That's why my whole talk was about going back to the origin. Chabad is Hasidus. Baal Shem Tov. The Litvische world is the Vilna Gaon, Reb Chaim Volozhiner, Reb Chaim Brisker, and its models. If you take that and you strip it from its taharosa, its purity, it's not Litvish and it's not Chabad and Hasidus. It's basically, like I said, when they said there's Chabad light, I said there's green lights and red lights and yellow lights. It's not Chabad. You're just taking something because you want to feel good and you want to, and therefore you play with it. So in other words, I'm not perfect, believe me, and no one's perfect. But the standard is the standard. So when we talk about Neo-Hasidus, you know, Yaakov, that Neo-Hasidus already started way back in the 50s. I don't know if you're familiar. But there were individuals who I knew and I interviewed who had this idea back then. It don't work at the end of the day. You don't find them in Flatbush, in Lakewood, in Baltimore, in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim. You don't find them. You find wannabes, you find exotics, you find pretend people, makeup people, fakers, or good people, but they're misled. So the ethos is what drives a movement. If you depart from the ethos, the philosophy, it's not that movement. It's your own shtick. And you're welcome. You want to make your own shtick? Go ahead, do it.
Rabbi Dolphin.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, you're talking about, you were saying about Neo-Hasidism, how it sounds like you want to feel good and you want to make your own shtick. I'm just trying to understand Chabad Lubavitch, why that's not to feel good and to make your own shtick. If there is, you were talking about that the whole Hasidus centers around the sociologist, the Rebbe, and Chabad seems to be different from all other Hasidus in the sense that there is no Rebbe anymore, and it is different. It is branched off different than other Hasidus. So why wouldn't the casual observer make that observation, that the same observation you're making about Neo-Hasidism on Chabad Lubavitch?
And very good question. And you're right. They could make that observation, and they wouldn't be wrong in making that observation. However, my response is it's an observation. Why? And not the metziut, the reality. Why? Of course, the Rebbe passed away. However, Lubavitch, Chabad, is 200 years with hundreds of Sfarim of a philosophy, of a movement, of a shita. When I say that a Hasidus is about a Rebbe, it's a Rebbe teaching Teiras Hashem. The Teiras Hashem is still here. The fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took away the Rebbe, that's what God does, And the fact that Lubavitch and Hasidim haven't chosen another Rebbe, that's what they decided to do so far. And maybe for eternity till Mashiach comes. Now, you're saying that that's a departure from the Hasidic model. I agree with you. I don't disagree. But by the way, we all know that Breslev, Reb Nachman, instructed that there be no successor to him as a Rebbe. So this isn't the first time in Hasidic history where we have an individual who left such instruction. But yes, you're right. It's a departure from most Hasidic movements, and it's also a departure from the Chabad movement, who had successors. But what should we do, or what should I do, that my Rebbe didn't have children, and he did not feel himself to be in a position to make a successor, because he said for 42 years of his life the same idea. I am only a memale mukim of my father-in-law. I am only a fill-in for my father-in-law. Now, you could say that he's lying. You could say that he's being petty, that he's being facetious, he's making conversation. But I heard it from him hundreds of times, said in a serious way. And I believe, and I tell you, he meant it. And therefore, he did not appoint anybody to be a Rebbe. What he said in 1988 after his wife passed away, he said, we have Rabbanim, we have Mashpiyim, and the implication was this is the way Chabad will continue. As his great-grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, said, how will Lubavitch continue? Because his Rebbetzin passed away in 1861, and he was down, and he was very distraught and all that. He said, if Hasidim will stay together and have Ahavas Yisrael and help each other, that's the way the Hasidus will continue. But I'm adding one nakuda, that Lubavitch and a Rebbe that I spoke about has hundreds of svarim to learn. The Rebbe's teachings are there. Let me ask you a question. Do you think during his lifetime, how many times did I have a personal conversation with the Rebbe? Ask me that question. Do you know the answer is twice. At my bar mitzvah, when my father took me in as a bar mitzvah boy, and he asked me something on my bar mitzvah pilpul. And the other time was when 1980, I brought a bar mitzvah boy from California, who I was being makarev in camp, and I brought him and his grandparents to New York to see the Rebbe and get a bracha and all that. So I went in as an interpreter. That's it. Did I write to him? Yes. Did I get answers? Yes. What I'm saying is that the whole idea is ruchnius. That's what I was getting at before. The model of Chassidus is belief in ruchnius and relationship with ruchnius. That's where it begins and that's where it ends.
So you don't believe that there's a tzarech in having the soul geologist to decide what you should do spiritually, or you do, just you can figure that out through the svar?
I believe, who am I, but if you're asking, I believe that we need a soul geologist. And the fact that Hashem is not giving it to us right now, send him an email or a WhatsApp. I don't have an answer. But I believe that you do need a soul geologist. How do I and how do Hasidim get to their answer? Some go to the Rebbe's Ohel, his gravesite. Some put a letter into the Igros Kodesh. Some go to 770. And some sit in their house in Borough Park or in Baltimore and are mechaven, learn his Torah, learn his teachings, and they identify with that, and they check with a Rav, and together with that they make a decision. But
you're sure that okay, fine.
But would it be easier? Would it be easier to have the soul geologist answer you in a letter or answer you in face to face? Absolutely. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. And let me tell all of you and myself that only Hashem is the answer. And anyone who tells you otherwise, they might express themselves incorrectly with words, but the basis, the foundation of Chassidus is Torah. And if you're not an Isha Torah and you don't have Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's all worthless. Now, also, you should know the Rebbe created and pushed for what's called a Mashpia system, where he wanted every community, besides in the yeshivas where you have Rosh Yeshiva and Mashpiyim, Mashgichim, but in the communities of Anash, he wants there should be Mashpiyim, in addition to a Rav, people who are guides and mentors, helping people, and they who have had more contact with the Rebbe, like myself. I grew up in the Rebbe's community for many years of my life, and I learned his teachings. People like us who become personal mashpiyim to other people is very helpful. But, like I said, to your question, because we're talking honestly, of course it would be better. So Chabad has never forsaken the belief that I espoused earlier that a Rebbe is a soul geologist and we need a Rebbe, and Lubavitch Chassidim today, by and large, feel that this is what Hashem wants, this is what we do. Is it what I want? No.
Rabbi Dalton, can I ask a question?
You can ask, you can argue, go ahead.
Maybe I'm asking a hard job of you to speak on behalf of Lubavitchers. Maybe you'll just tell me your personal hargish. But what do you think, and maybe I'll ask two questions, but the first one is, what do you think of Litvak, who has this server Pshach, and he might have an animosity for Lubavitch Hasidus? And when he's in Yeshiva, he talks to his friends about how he doesn't like Lubavitch, but then when he's going on vacation with his friends, being his manim, to Thailand, he has, thanks to the Rebbe's ideas of sending out shluchim across the world, he's able to benefit tremendously from Chabad services, so to say. And this person doesn't feel, even though he spends his time in yeshiva saying not nice things about Chabad, he still partakes in the benefits that it could give to him. That would be my first question, what you feel about that. And second question is, since we're all Ner Yisrael Bakum here, we'd be very interested in hearing some tidbits maybe about Ner Yisrael and Lubavitch.
Okay. To the first question, my honest and gut feeling about such a person is that he's a hypocrite, I'm sorry, and a fake, and that when he will really be honest with himself, he'll either say, I'm a believer of a Rav Shach and the animosity, which I think is ridiculous because you want to have sinna, you want to have hatred towards a Jew, but if that's what he comes to, God bless him, or he'll say, I've been living with a mistake all my life, and I see how fine and kind and learned in Gemara, in Halacha, not just in Hasidus, Lubavitch Chassidim are, which is something that the yeshiva world has sold and sells their Talmidim a bag of hogwash. Okay? I can point to hundreds of Lubavitcher Shluchim that can put any balabas in Lakewood in their back pocket in learning. And if you don't believe me, I'll give you names, as long as you'll get them to call those people. We have a person in Buffalo, New York, Rabbi Herschel Greenberg, who knows Kachin on his 5 fingers. He would be at Rosh Yeshiva in Brisk tomorrow. Not in Lakewood, but by Avram Yeshua, whoever took over Avram Yeshua. Because you got to go to Brisk if you want a good shidduch, a real good shidduch. Mir is not good enough. You need Brisk, right? Let's call a spade, guys. I've been around a long time, and I've been on planes sitting with briskers and mirrors, and I know the whole gamut of what you're thinking.
So that's exactly the point. So you just stated that which is what I seem to feel, that no, there has not been any reconciliation with the current Chabadskers. And yes, there are, that Roshach Shita still exists. Just it happens to be that when it fits some Litvish people's convenience, they're going to take care, they're going to go to Maui because there's a Chabad house in Maui. So that doesn't mean that everybody's okay with Chabad. That just means that when people want to get, I don't know, when people want to enjoy themselves, they make use of Chabad, which is not good. But that doesn't mean that there's been a reconciliation.
No, I am. First of all,
you call them hypocrites.
No, I apologize. I'm going to have to leave now. I just want to say thank you. I enjoyed it a lot, and
I hope one day you guys can get into a car when the COVID's over, drive down here, or get me to there, and we have hours of fabringen and conversation. But.
And what about the second point?
Wait! I just want to address Tuvya's point. You're right, Tuvia. You're right. Going to Maui doesn't mean, but I was saying that he's a hypocrite and a fake, because how can you smile to someone and stick him with a knife behind you? I mean, people do that. Is that nice? Is that menschlich? It's disgusting. And I'll tell you a story. When I was once bringing in Yerushalayim and Heichel Menachem, which are right around the corner from Brisk, over there in off Rechav Yeshayahu, it was Chav Dalet Tevis, it was the Balatanya's yahrzeit, and it was a packed crowd, a lot of Gerech Hasidim, and we were bringing and singing Nigunim and saying L'chaim, and it was beautiful. There's one guy sitting there. I said right, he said left. I said night, he said day. And I kept my cool, and I didn't say anything. I just answered and went on. All of a sudden, a Gerech Chassid, they're tall, a lot of these guys. They look like football linemen. This guy is a tall guy. He gets up in front of 100 to 150 people in the room, and he says, "Listen." He points to that guy. He says, "Listen, you're a masnagid," he says, "but I'm going to break your bones if you don't shut up now. If you don't be quiet, I'm going to take care of you." He said, this Rav here speaking is a Lubavitcher. A Lubavitcher has to have Avas Yisrael. That's their foundation. They got to love everybody. So he's not going to say anything to you, and but I'm a Gerer, and that's not my foundation. And if you don't be quiet and stop making trouble, I'm going to finish you. The guy sat there, quiet as the rest of the time. Then we all got up to dance, and he goes into the hallway because he doesn't want to dance with us, the Hasidim. And they slap him in. Wait, that's one part of the story. 5 years later, I'm here in Borough Park, right here on 17th and 45th, right next to my house, and my office is on 13th Avenue and 48th, so I would take sometimes rides. I see a car parked by the pump. I go over, I say, "Could you give me a ride? Would you mind? Are you going up?" He says, "Sure, come in." He turns to me and he says, "Are you the Lubavitcher?" And I turn around and I look to him, and I didn't realize before, and I see and I say, "Are you the Misnagid?" And it was the same guy from Brisk from 5 years ago. And I say to him, "What was your issue that night?" So he said to me honestly, "I believe the Vilna Gaon's Reish Mem Ches against Hasidim is in full force. And I'm not going to sell out like most of the Litvisher. I'm going to keep it going." Okay. I hear it, and he's taking me, and we're getting closer to my office. I'm about to get off. And he says, "Guess what? I'm married." I say, "Mazel tov, wonderful. Who'd you marry?" "The granddaughter of a Karliner Chassid." I bursted out laughing. I said, "The Goyin said there's a Reish Mem Ches on Hasidim. You're not allowed to marry a granddaughter of a Chassid." That's the answer, Tuvia. And that's the hypocrisy. When it's good for me, I use Lubavitch. When it's good for me, I marry a girl that she probably was a Beis Yaakov girl and doesn't know about Hasidus. But the fact is, she came from a Hasidic background. So we're not talking about that. Now, as far as the etzem hadover, the animosity. Listen, I don't have to tell you guys. Animosity is not acceptable. Sin is not acceptable. You have a different shita? No problem. But what does it have to do with learning Tzos and learning Tanya? Nothing. That's the issue. The issue is let us get back to learning more about Teiras Hashem, both in Nigla and Chassidus. Yes, now, Avigdor, what was your second question?
My second question was if you had some interesting tidbits for us about the relationship between Lubavitch and Israel.
Let's leave that for another occasion. Bli Neder, we'll have another session if you would like. I want to prepare for that. I do have some tidbits, but I have to think how to say it and what to say. What?
Besides the perm shtick from a couple of years ago.
What'd you say?
We all know about the perm shtick from a couple of years ago.
Which Purim shtick? Oh, that Ner Yisroel made up against Lubavitch?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, listen.
That would probably be something... No?
No, that's not... No. I look at, history. I study history. I'm looking at real stuff, not shtick and not, that's Narishkeit. I don't want to. I'm embarrassed to be engaged in such conversation. You want to talk about, the Chilukei Deis between one of the Gedolim and one of the Lubavitcher Rebbes. You want to understand why Rav Aaron Kotler and Rav Kalmanovich didn't want to support the students in Shanghai, and why Lubavitch was upset. It's a legitimate issue and everyone should conclude what they conclude. But it's not childish stuff. My father's better than your father, and they're B'nai Nida. You got the wrong guy. I don't want to engage in that. I want to eliminate that. It's shtuyot and stupidity. It doesn't belong on the mind of people like yourselves. You're all intelligent. So the baby stuff is over. You're 20 plus. You're no babies anymore. Come on, get into something with some substance to understand. And again, I conclude, and I'm telling you, if you want to understand more about Lubavitch, you have to learn its Torah. And that's all. Going to Maui, you're not learning about Lubavitch philosophy and Torah. You're learning about the chesed and the bottom line that we do, and kol hakavod. But where's that coming from? Why is that? Why? Ask yourself. Why is a person like Reb Herschel Greenberg, who could be at Rosh Yeshiva and Brisk, been 40 plus years in Buffalo, New York? What's going on here? That is what to discuss. Because that's a shita. Not, is my Rosh Yeshiva greater than your Rosh Yeshiva and all of that. So forgive me, but I don't want to go that direction. What do you say? This is who? Avi, you've been quiet. What do you say?
I had a very similar question to what Mr. Blachman asked before. But what I was really curious to hear, I guess, about was also when Yaakov touched on the Neo Hasidus. You mentioned before that a lot of what stemmed what the original Balatani was attracted to in the Hasidus was the warmth, and that was what took him away sort of from being a Litvak. That's what it sounded like. So nowadays it could be that there's people are feeling that they need an extra warmth, and that it could be changing. I didn't fully understand why the Neo-Hasidic movement was so different than maybe what was perceived in Hasidus 200 plus years ago.
Okay, so what I'm saying is the warmth is in Hasidus. What do you need Neo-Hasidus? You have it in Hasidus. Why must I wear a ponytail or get a mohawk or wear my yarmulke this way or wear my yarmulke that way and say I'm a chassid if I can wear a normal yarmulke and have the same warmth? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying is, the answer is because you want to show you're different. So that's your own shtick. That's it. There's place today in Hasidus, in authentic Hasidus, be it Ger, be it Satmar, be it, and Lubavitch especially, of course, Breslev, to everyone to get that warmth. And I agree with you. The warmth is so relevant. And that's why more and more people gravitate to Hasidus. But I'm emphasizing again, that's not enough. You see, if it's only warmth, and it's not intellectualism, at the end of the day, the Yetzer Hara has warmth too. He says, come to me. You have to have the lumdus. You have to have the intellectualism.
That at the beginning, Hasidus, that was the initiation of the Baal Tanya, and Hasidus started without the lumdus.
Actually, you're incorrect. Not with the Baal Tanya, you're incorrect. Maybe with the Baal Shem Tov, you're right. Even there, I'm not sure you're right. With the Baal Tanya, he was known as a massive Talmud Chacham before he came to the Maggid.
As I was saying, you said that he initiated the lumdus into Hasidus, which means that before there was a foundation without the lumdus.
So by and large, before the Baal Tanya, many of the adherents of the Baal Shem Tov were simple people. That's correct. And what he introduced is that even the simpleton can understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu, can have an understanding of Hashem. But I'm addressing, like what you said before, why is it important? Why not just this warmth? So first of all, I answered your question, or I addressed your question, that you don't need Neo-Hasidism for that. Hasidus offers that, even today. And number two, I said that that's not enough just to shuckle. Shake and bake is not enough. You need to have an understanding. And when you have an understanding, i.e. Chabad learning, and I don't mean only Chabad, you can be Ger or Breslev, but to learn and understand the Shita, the text. What does Rab Nachman, in other words, Rab Nachman of Breslev. So we know, we go to Tzfas, we go to Yerushalayim, we see signs, and you know that Breslev Hasidim in Russia were Ovdei Hashem, davening and learning for hours. They were very, in Russia, because they were very close with many of the Lubavitcher Hasidim in Russia. So, but you ask today, most people, no, it's about clapping or running to Uman for Rosh Hashanah. Now, I have no problem. If you feel a connection in Uman, if you really do, go, kol hakavod, chas v'shalom. But don't make it into a substitute for the learning and the avodah. And that's much easier. It's so much easier. Feel good Judaism is so much easier than understand Judaism with a Hasidic flavor. And that, my friends, is real Lubavitch. Talmidei Chachomim. Ovdei Hashem. Yirei Shemayim, we're not talking about there's a Yid here who's a Talmud Chacham, he's a relative of the Boston Rebbe, and he told me that he was by Chabad in Warsaw years ago for Shabbos in Krakow, and he needed chont, and he would have paskined, the chont wasn't ready before Shabbos. He says the Chabad Rav paskined according to whatever, you're not allowed to do it, no chont Shabbos. And he said he was blown away, first of all, by his yediyas, his knowledge. And I know this Rav. He's 40 years old. He's not 70, okay? And I know who he is. And his frumkeit, his Yiddish Shemayim, that he said, although I have a whole group of you guys here who are not Lubavitchers, he says, my psak is you cannot use and do the Shabbos anymore. It's too late. No chont. You don't like it? Go elsewhere. He didn't say that. He didn't say that, of course. But this person came back. We met in shul, and he said, I must tell you. And in other words, and this person is a bigger Talmud Chacham than the Rav there, but nevertheless, he says he's so frum. I was blown away. Krakow, Poland. Now, not 100 years ago. And this is the Lubavitcher Shliach. That's what we're talking about. Yira Shemayim. Real fear in all HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where you have, it means something to you. It's not just lip service. This comes through learning Chassidus. If you will learn, you said that he's already gone, that he has a sheer 10 minutes. If you will learn a little Tanya, but a little bit, but seriously, 5-10 minutes a day, and think about it, and without distractions, I'm telling you, in a year from now, your cup, your Rosh Chodshechem, we come for Rosh Chodesh, you'll have Naya Kepelach, new heads. In English, we call this the paradigm shift. You'll start thinking differently about your life. And it'll help you, not just in your learning, it'll help you with Shidduchim, it'll help you with your Parnasa later on, in so many ways. Just to tell you another story. For 10 years, one second, Avigdor. For 10 years, I was teaching Tanya to a Jew in Midtown Manhattan, a businessman. At the time, he wasn't religious when we started. Today, he's a religious person. He's a Baal Tshuva. In the 6th year or so, he calls me in the middle of the week. Once a week I would go. 1 hour on the train from Borough Park to Manhattan, 1 hour learning, and 1 hour coming back. A 3-hour stint. So one day he calls me in the middle of the week and he says, Rabbi Dalfin, I want to thank you for teaching me Tanya. So I say to him, we have an appointment tomorrow. I'm coming to your office. Why are you calling me now? You could thank me in person. He says, I'll tell you why. I just came out of a business meeting. And there was an ethical question. He's in the insurance business. And there was an ethical question how I should act. And I stopped for a second. I reflected. And I asked myself, what would the Beinani say? The Beinani is the prototype of the Tanya. The average person who can excel to become a special person in controlling his thoughts, his speech, and his action. And he said, I made my decision based on what I learned in Tanya, and it's because you have been teaching me for 6 years Tanya that I had the sensitivity to think this way in regard to my business question. So I couldn't control myself. I have to thank you for giving me that sensitivity. What am I bringing out? It's not about me. What I'm bringing out is the Tanya opens up your cup, your head, and you start thinking differently. Yes, Avigdor.
Something that I hear a lot about is that the Friedlicher really changed what Lubavitch Hasidus is like. So just to give a dogma that it used to be a very elitist sort of Hasidus for the most intellectual, and now you sort of see it as a populist sort of movement, almost everybody clinging onto it, and it's very much lost that this is just a dogma that sort of say intellectual elitism. And there's other, obviously, changes. Also, I think you alluded to the Lubavitcher, the Menachem Mendel having a sort of change. So when I hear a lot about the Yeshiva world that it's not really such a hemshech. Yes, they learned the Tanya, but the earlier Lubavitch Rebbes would be surprised at where the Hasidus is right now. That's just some stuff that I would hear. So I wonder what you think about that idea. Is it a real connection for 150, 20 years to the Baal Tanya, or has there been radical changes starting from the Friedlicher Rebbe that would make the Hasidus as is today not recognizable to earlier Lubavitch Rebbes?
Very good question. Very good point. Briefly, the germ and the nekuda is the same today as it was 100 years ago and 200 years ago, i.e., the togetherness, the varmkeit, the care, the observation of neshama. All the same. I just was in Russia. I was in Poland. My father-in-law was a Russian Jew, born in the late 20s. My uncle, my wife's uncle, was a Mendel Futterfass, a famous chassid. So I communicated in very real life with people who knew from the previous 100 years. And I tell you 100% that Lubavitcher Hasidus was never an elitist Hasidus. That is a fallacy and a factual mistake. Because learning Hasidus and delving into it intellectually doesn't make you an elitist. You know, Meir tells Lakewood is not Slobodka. I don't mean today Slobodka, the Slobodka of Europe. Slobodka of Europe had an elitist approach, which the Alter wanted. And I've written extensively about this in my book on Rabbi Hutner, who was a Talmud of Slobodka and Lubavitch. But the others weren't. Navardic, for sure not. So, but Reb Shimon Shkop was Rosh Yeshiva of Telz in the beginning. And the great Rosh Yeshivas, what, elitism? No elitism, we're learning. We want to understand. Lubavitch wants to understand divinity, God vis-a-vis Hasidus, so it was totally into that. But are you kidding? You think most Lubavitch Hasidim were flutin' tootin' intellectuals? Albert Einsteins of Hasidus? Absolutely not. They were simple people. So what? Wait. So as far as the intellectualism, the elitism, that's not true. Factually, nisht emes, lo emet. As far as the pa'ula of the davening and the learning, what else are you going to do in the shtetl if you're in the yeshiva or the shtibel? You learn and you daven. We were being oppressed, not just us, Judaism. Your ancestors, my ancestors. There was nowhere to go. We came to a new world, be it America, be it Eretz Yisrael. Oh, what do we do with this Yiddishkeit and this Lumdus? So the Frierdiker Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, who you were addressing, saw a need. Chilul Shabbos. Stores are opened. Basic Yiddishkeit, 101. Close your store on Shabbos. So he encourages his Rabbanim to get the congregation, and in Baltimore, I was there, near Johns Hopkins, there's a shul, Anshe Lubavitch, where Rabbi Axelrod was the Rav, and he was a very good friend of the whole Jewish community and very well respected. He came there in 1925 and he passed away in 1952. And Rabbi Axelrod goes out to the street, I heard from people who were there, leading a protest with signs, Shmira Shabbos, keep the Shabbos. The same thing the Munkacher Rav, the Minchas Elazar, said in 1932 when the crew came from America. You must have seen it on the screen, on the YouTube, where they filmed him and he says, Shabbos! Yidden haltem Shabbos! Jews keep the Shabbos! 1932, Munkach. Baltimore, 1945, 46, 47, Shabbos. Who's behind that? The Lubavitch Rebbe of Yosef Yitzchak sitting in Brooklyn, New York. Is that a departure from European Judaism? It's a contrary, it's an enhancement. Taking the germ of learning and davening and bringing it to the world. Now, some argue that Lubavitch would daven for many hours and meditate, and today there's less of that. First of all, you have it in every yeshiva, you have several guys who do that. And you have in every Lubavitch shul and communities, people that do that. But yes, the previous Rebbe said, and the Rebbe emulated this, there's a fire burning outside, and we have to extinguish the fire and save people from the fire. So yes, you're right, Avigdor, that once upon a time, they didn't look at the situation that a fire is burning. And let me tell you, because I've studied Polish Jewry pre-Holocaust, there was a big fire burning, not just Polish, Hungarian, Galician, and Litvak, and Lithuanian, the Haskalah movement. Do you know why Vlozhin closed in 1892? I don't know what you've been told, but my research and others point to because the Haskalah was rampant that they chased out the Rosh Yeshiva. They said if you don't stop Rosh Yeshiva, you're going to get it. So they put the locks on the door. The excuse was the government forced them to close it. So what do we see? We see we see how the Nakuda is the same. The fact that the times call for different presentations, that's true. So that's my answer to you. And just for the record, I'll give you just one example. I can give you many. One example. Do you know that Yosef Bloch, the Rosh Yeshiva of Telz, wrote Shiurei Das? Have you heard of a sefer or seen a sefer? You look into that sefer, and you go to Cleveland today, and not just today, but the last 40, 50 years since they opened in America, and you won't recognize Telz. And I know that because there were Talmidim who learned in Telz in Europe, and they came to Cleveland, to say hello and all that. They said, this is Telz? And the answer is, it's not the Telz of Europe. Anyone that thinks that Ponevezh today is the Ponevezh that I wrote about in my next book of Ponevezh has to see a psychiatrist. I'm sorry. It's factually wrong. You can make up any story you want, but it's not. And so in every community, be it Hasidic or be it Litvak, there have been changes. Okay? If you knew about in Poland, in Warsaw, how the children, how youngsters of 11, 12, 13 would come to the local shtibel at 5 in the morning and learn away, you would say, wait a minute. Is this the Jewry of Hasidic Jewry today? The world was a different world. Our concerns were different. So it's not a fair equation to say Lubavitch is not the way they were in Russia. It's true that there are differences, but the differences are for everyone, for all communities. Any other? Yes, Moshe.
Before we finish up, I was wondering if you could say a few interesting stories that might be found.
Guys need to get to second. Maybe guys have questions next time.
Sei gesund. Hatzlacha. Could someone send me a copy of this shmooze?
Yeah, I'll try to.
Okay. And guys, let's stay in touch. I'm serious. Let's stay in touch.
I think they may just follow up with one question.
Mice also had a question, it seemed like.
Go first.
Mice wanted Meisim, so it was a little bit broader. My question was just to follow up on Victor. You were going Rayats 1930s. I'm going to go 770, 2020. A friend of mine just walked into 2020, into 770 a month or two ago. And after Ma'ariv, the Olam made a clap on the Bima, and the entire yeshiva erupted in That's not a departure from the Baal Tanya. That's not a departure from the Tzemach Tzedek.
It is and it isn't, but I have to explain that, and it'll take time. I'm not embarrassed to explain it. I'm not embarrassed to talk about it. I have much to say about it. So outwardly, you're right, this is a departure. Inwardly, it's not a departure. You know why? Because Reb Levi, I'll just answer you with one thing. Reb Levi Yitzchok of Barditchev writes in Parsha Shoftim in Kedushas Levi that you could bow down or should bow down to a tzaddik. How is that different than screaming Yechi Adonenu? How can you say that you're allowed to bow down to a human being? Isn't that Avodah Zarah?
Hold on a second. I didn't hear who you quoted that from.
Reb Levi Yitzchok of Barditchev in Kedushas Levi, Parshas Shoftim.
That might be departure from Chasidus, but Chasidus is a departure from everything else as well. So
Chasidus is not a departure from anything. Chasidus is Torah, and it's the explanation of how we understand Torah and how we use Torah. So yes, it's different than the Goins model of using Torah. But it's not a departure, it's a different application. But I don't want to argue that right now. What I'm saying, I'm going back to the Nakud. What I'm saying to you is that the saying of Yechi, which is very strange and different and a departure, like you say, it's no different than Rabbi Levi Yitzchak saying what he says 200 years ago in Kedushas Levi. And just like we need to clarify what Rabbi Levi Yitzchak means, we need to clarify what that Yechi Adonenu means. Not that I would suggest doing that, but I understand what they want. And again, I'm not for that approach. Clearly, I feel that that's not necessary. But I do understand them. And that's what I want you guys to start thinking about. Understanding each other. Understanding, that's the thrust of my books. Understanding the different cultures. Moshe Feinstein, are you there?
Yeah.
What did you want?
I just wanted, maybe before we finish, a few short stories of things that during your research you found that most people don't know. From either end, either Lippish or Hasidish.
I put out weekly clips. I'll send you, the weekly clips. You could
just two or three of your best stories.
I always say I'm not like a jukebox. In the olden days, you'd go into a dinette, a luncheonette. You'd put in 5 cents, and it'd go pop 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 poop pop beep pop beep pop beep pop beep. Right? You know what I mean? You don't put in 5 cents into me and have me spit out stories. I don't work that way. So we're gonna leave it at that. I know I didn't make you happy. I didn't tell you a story. But I'm just not right now in that mindset. So please, this way, hopefully we'll have another chance and we'll have another conversation. And you'll ask me if you want a few stories, I'll prepare them. And you'll want to talk about some of the others, I'll prepare them. Sei gesund, guys. All the best. Hatzlacha. Take care.
Okay, you say can I bring it down there?
Yeah, wait. But don't, listen to me. Don't take off the document.
Mom.
Okay.
Do a new one. Are they all Lubavitch?
None of them are Lubavitch, I don't think.
What are they?
Okay. That's for sure. Good talks.
They don't... They're modern?
They're not modern, no.
Okay, I'm closing one down.
No, I'm coming back.
Why, you going to sleep?
Could be.
Wait, I need it. You want the chair down?
No, I want it upstairs.
Why?
Every